Welcome to Radioflash, Armada's dedicated electromagnetic spectrum defense and security podcast. Now, we last caught up with electronic warfare supremo and inventor of the smart kill concept, Alasdair Gilchrist, back in 2024 during episode 16 of Radioflash. Now, the SMART in smart kill is an abbreviation of spectrum measures against radio frequency threats. Gilly, as he's known to his friends, developed the smart kill concept as a result of his long career as an EW practitioner in the Royal Navy and his subsequent time in industry. A lot has happened since we last chatted about smart kill, not least of which has been the recent war between the United States, Israel and Iran. And Gilly joins us once again from his home on the south coast of England to talk about how he has further developed the smart kill concept since he last appeared on the show. Gilly, mate, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, always a pleasure to speak to you, and looking forward to getting some information over to our spectrum warriors out there who may need to think about things slightly differently in a smarter and a smart kill way.
Let's kick off with just reminding people. I mean, you mentioned that about the spectrum warriors who are out there. So just in your own words, define smart kill for us.
So smart kill, as the acronym itself, is spectrum measures against radio frequency threats. So the spectrum measures isn't necessarily anything particularly new, but they're in the family tree. We have electromagnetic surveillance measures and support measures, depending if you're in the US. Then we have electromagnetic countermeasures and protection measures. We've got to think of smart kill in a simple model, where the frame of the model is your electromagnetic protection measures. So all your sensors, all your comms, things that you need access to the spectrum, that's your frame of your model. And that includes, radars and comms and everything. Even the cyber stuff needs to be protected, because you need to be starting to think about things like frequency agility, parametric agility, different software-defined radios and radars, and protect them. That's all in the EPM side of smart kill. The smart bit in the middle is really the introduction of AI, machine learning, and reducing the time taken in a traditional kill chain, especially of the find and fix. And by doing that, we need ESM. And that's the foundation of the model of smart kill. So ESM at the tactical end, rather than ES, which is normally at the sort of operational lens, is not necessarily new, but there's lots and lots of ESM systems out there that are designed specifically to defeat or intercept tactical threats, such as missiles, such as communications, such as comms externals. And what we need to try and do is to bring those together to think, okay, so with the introduction of AI, machine learning, cognitive EW, CogEW, how can we reduce that kill chain and the cognitive burden on the operational commander to make better decisions? Because they've got to make those decisions to make sure that protection of hard kill. So as one of the aims of smart kill is to use your weapons, your kinetic weapons, and preserve them for the threats that are really required to defeat those hard kill systems that are coming towards you, when you might need to think, well, actually, I don't need to fire a £500,000 missile from my destroyer or my Patriot battery system to take out a couple of plastic drones. And we're seeing that played out day in, day out. The economic warfare is not good. Nobody's talking about the costs of these massive amounts of missiles that they're firing. My analogy would be, and my question would be to the community, is it sensible to have $100 million of pounds fighter aircraft go and take out some drones when actually you could have taken them out with smart kill in the spectrum? Because a lot of these drones, need some sort of communication, some sort of link that requires a spectrum. And that's where we need to be thinking far more actively and change the procurement models to look at getting after smart kill. And that's what I was trying to get smart kill out there, so that people can discuss it, debate it. I'm not saying you're right. There's lots of command and control elements to be talked through. There's lots of procurement decisions to be made, because if we just keep saying, we're going to buy more expensive missiles, more expensive guns, more expensive hard kill, more expensive kinetic effectors, then you're going to run out of money because drones and a mix of hybrid warfare with short-term missiles. When you look at Russia and the Siberian drone factories, hundreds of thousands of drones per month exporting into Iran, North Korea, China, and China likewise going backwards, back the other way. This is only going to go one way. It's going to be a mass of inexpensive kinetic effectors against you, and you're going to have to think smarter and act smarter if you want to survive. And that's hence why smart kill.
Now, Gilly, you and I first discussed this concept, I remember back in, around about 2024, and then obviously you came on Radioflash and articulated some more precisions regarding it. As I mentioned in the introduction, lots happened since then. And what, from your perspective, do you feel has changed since you first started exploring and articulating smart kill as a concept?
Two things: the Ukrainian war with Russia, and then shortly after that, the Israel-Iran US conflict, and also a bit about the Houthi rebels from a couple of years ago. And really, from my own perspective, for the Royal Navy, was something close to my heart. Having served 30 years in the Navy, I just looked at HMS Diamond, and this is open source. It was, it was a brilliant job. Captain and the crew took quite a few missiles out from Houthi rebels, anti-ship missiles with Type 45 destroyer, Sea Viper missiles. But how many of them have you got, and how many did they fire? And they fired a lot. And guess what? They emptied the magazine pretty quick. And guess what? They don't have the capability to do anymore: replenish at sea. So they had to go all the way back to a base port from the Gulf back through to Gibraltar and replenish and resupply, being therefore out of operational area for weeks. And that is not smart. That is not the way that it should be. So then that sort of proved to me that, it's a smart kill, because, we've taken a lot of our jammers, we take a lot of our deception devices. We're not investing in our decoys. We're not investing in enough quantity and at scale, and therefore you're paying the price for that now. And that's as an example there. So that really is a catalyst to change, and that should be a catalyst to change mindsets of decision makers, of operational commanders, of the procurement agencies, to really think, hang on, this is not good use of the money that we're allocating. I'm not saying you don't need those kinetic weapons, because they're great, but you need, the whole thing is smart kill is about ensuring the best and optimum solution create the effect to defeat incoming mass threats of drones and missiles in hybrid warfare terms. So that was the big change in the catalyst.
Gilly, you mentioned your naval background just then. Obviously, this has supreme relevance to that domain. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about smart kill's relevance to other domains, land, air, for instance, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, certainly. So from the air side of life, again, is it sensible to F-35 and going up and attacking 2 or 3 drones that are coming in, say to Cyprus in my own country, or to a friendly nation in the Middle East? Of course, if that defeats the incoming threat, then tea and medals for everybody. And we're seeing that in the press, and we're seeing that, hey, look at what you did. And I'm not in any shape or form, belittling the fantastic job that our service men and women are doing out there in difficult circumstances. What I'm trying to do is to say, okay, from an air domain, to answer your question directly, could we think slightly differently? What other tools have we got in our weaponry that we can take out these things? And it might be even, before they even take off, and putting in some sort of virus into the command and control that is controlling these. It might just be, as we go into the era of direct energy weapons and a shield effect and jammers and more powerful jammers, or even smaller, smarter jammers that actually have like a decoy patrol. So, for example, in terms of the air domain, very expensive, Tom, to create a combat air patrol, and maybe having 4 aircraft up to protect an area. Might be a task group, might be some land forces that you're protecting. Yeah, very expensive to keep that 24/7 up in the air. Well, if you had things like quadcopters with recoverable decoys on that they're ready to be used in terms of ECM. the electromagnetic countermeasure is ready against a certain threat, it's up there. Whereas if you don't have that concept, you have then potentially to detect, track, identify, and then fire something. It's often too late. That's the whole idea of a sort of combat decoy patrol. That's another sort of concept that fits nicely into the smart kill concept. It was just like when we invented the combat air patrol, the CAP, and I, as a veteran of the Falklands, I saw that from 40 years ago, where the sea area had an amazing effect. And in terms of decoy patrols, we need to be thinking on that with smart quadcopters, maybe smart drones that are loitering and protecting soldiers, sailors, and airmen in doing their duties in both air, land, and maritime domains.
From your perspective, what's been the response so far to Smart Kill, and where do you feel the concept goes from here?
I've been invited to brief the NATO EW Advisory Committee, who is meeting as we speak this week, and I'll be doing that by VTC. So that's the heads of each of the NATO nations, the head of EW, chaired by a full colonel and from the NATO headquarters. So that's one way I'm promoting. Next week, I'm off to the AOC Europe Helsinki conference, where I've proposed my paper for a 25-minute slot, and that's been accepted. So I'll be doing a brief at AOC Europe, and I'm also be chairing the Session A AOC Future EW Techniques and Systems, which is 3 eminent speakers, not necessarily talking about Smart Kill, but their briefs will touch on the borders of Smart Kill. My idea there is that if you think of Smart Kill as a bit of a golden thread, you're pulling together lots of capabilities. There'll be many people listening to this who will go to have been to many conferences, and let's take, for example, the conference next week, and I'm sure it's going to be fantastic in Helsinki in Finland. Great big centre full of EW kit. The majority of that could well be Smart Kill equipment, but instead of looking at all different bits and different companies and get the golden thread and start thinking. Because if we want, as an EW community, to start gaining more traction and having more procurement dollars, pounds, and euros, we need to start thinking about pulling this together and talking a language that people can understand. They go, that's what Smart Kill is. That concept then pulls all this together. Yeah, we need to be investing in that, because underpinning that is some technologies such as AI, machine learning, cognitive EW, and bringing all that together. That's what I'm trying to do with Smart Kill.
Where else can folks go and find out more and connect with you as well?
You can look me up in the JED sort of directory for AOC members, and I'll pass you my email address and contact details, Tom, for when this goes out, and anybody can, because there's no classification or anything. All Smart Kill I've done in terms of the paper and a broader white paper as well, which will be published shortly with a lot more detail in and annexes of examples, will be made available. Should people want to get in touch with me, there's no hidden agenda. I want as many people to understand and read this. And this is just my view of things. I'm very happy to have a debate. My ultimate aim is to have sort of Smart Kill as a NATO-defined term, and that's one of the things I'm trying to do tomorrow with the new act, to say, look, you get this as a proper NATO term, then things start changing. People can build doctrine because the NATO EMS doctrine and policy and strategy, I think, they're asking for new concepts. Well, here's a new concept. Well, let's build it in then, because otherwise the EW community will just carry on as normal and nothing will change, in my opinion.
What we'll do, Gilly, is we'll include a link to that Journal of Electromagnetic Dominance article that you were mentioning, and also get your contact details in the article that will accompany this podcast. So we'll make sure that gets out there, and we very much encourage our listeners, do get in touch with Gilly, take him up on his offer. Let's get this conversation going and help get even more momentum behind this, because it's a cool concept. It's certainly one I found fascinating. You and I will revisit this again, obviously, but in the meantime, Gilly, thanks so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure, anytime, and look forward to seeing you again shortly.
Thanks again, and don't forget, there's more news and analysis available at armadainternational.com. For now, that's all we've got time for. I've been your host, Tom Withington, at the controls. Thank you very much for listening.